Hi everyone, my name is Michelle. This is an episode of my brand new podcast where I'll be talking to my friends and colleagues in Queretaro. I'm really excited to do this because I'm so lucky to know all these people here. I came here about 2 years ago, nearly 3, and I just want to get to know everybody better and have these conversations live. Okay, so today I have my friends Adam and Alexis, who are the magicians behind the Irish Bakehouse. Thank you so much for being here today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves, Adam and Alexis? Here you go, Adam.
Hello, Michelle. My name is Adam, and I'm from Ireland, but I've been living in Mexico since 2016, after some time in other countries, including Canada, Romania, and Morocco. And I came here for 6 months with my main job, and I stayed.
I think a lot of us just kind of stayed, didn't we? And what about you, Alexis? How did you get here?
Hello, Michelle. Thank you for having me here. I'm an architect. I've been traveling around the country. I'm Mexican, and I arrived here to Querétaro because I was just passing by, and I just met Adam, and I decided to stay. So yeah, I've been living here for 2 years, so here I am.
Interesting. So you've come from Ireland and all other parts of the world. Alexis, I know you've been everywhere in Mexico, and you guys met and started the Irish Bakehouse. How did that happen?
It probably dates back several years because I've been cooking or baking all my life. Well, specifically since the age of 3 with my grandmother and my aunt, and I often did it for office events or for friends, for parties and different things like that. And lots of people over the years have said, hey, this is really good, you should consider selling this. And I started it, probably less than 1 year beforehand. I started up the @Irish Bakehouse Instagram channel with the idea that I would just post all of the different recipes and pictures that I was baking. This was another pandemic event, so we all had more time on our hands to do things like baking. Yeah, then what happened was we were driving to Mexico City in May 2021 for Alexis' birthday, and we were doing blah car, so that we had some extra passengers on board, and I was driving and Alexis was in the passenger seat, and I was being very quiet, and he said to me, Adam, is everything okay? He thought we were heading for an argument. But when I'm trapped in an environment where I can't progress anything, for example driving a long distance, my mind, because I'm confident driving that road, I know it very well, I can semi-switch off mentally. So my mind needs other things to think about. So during that 3 hour 30 trip, I planned the entire menu, marketing campaign, what recipes we would use, and when we would launch. So he said to me, Adam, is everything okay? I said, yes, everything's okay. We just need to go to a bar as soon as we arrive because I have something to tell you. That didn't help him, his concern. So he was very quiet. Then we got to Mexico City. We went straight to a bar. We ordered a couple of beers, and I said, okay, we're opening the Irish Bakehouse on Tuesday.
Wow, just like that?
And we did.
And here we are. Okay, so that's Adam's side of the story. How did this all work out? How was that day? Tell me from your point of view.
Yeah, it was kind of exactly like that. We met on February, and we started dating and going out, and I think I remember we went to a bakery or to a restaurant to have a breakfast, and I was like, okay, why don't we go to Six Flags for my birthday? So he said, okay, yeah, let's do it. I think it was the weekend, my birthday. So he was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's drive to Mexico City. We can have fun in Mexico City during the weekend. We can go to Six Flags. And I was like, okay, let me do it. And I bought the tickets for Six Flags in that exact moment. So we were like, okay, we're going to Mexico City next week. And yes, he was driving. I was in the other seat. We had another passengers in the car. I was talking to them, but I noticed that Anna was quiet. And sometimes when I see someone is quiet to me, I think they are mad, or we had something like an issue, an argument. I was like, is that everything? Did I say something that upset you or something like that? No. Everything is okay. Like, well, it seems like it's not okay because you've been quiet so long. Remember, we just met in February and this was May, So we kind of didn't know that much to understand each other. So I was like quite worried about this trip. So then when we arrived to Mexico City, we went to a bar and he was like, okay, let's open my Irish Bakehouse and next Tuesday. No, he said, we're going to open. Like, he didn't even ask me. Like, and I was like, okay. So he gave me all the recipes and we start baking. And I was just looking at the recipes and reading all the ingredients and the quantities. And I was like, something is not okay on this. So we start baking and some of the cakes were not working, and I was like, I think I need to not fix, just adjust some of the recipes. So I start like playing with some of the quantities of ingredients, and the cakes start like coming a little bit better.
Now, I have been lucky enough to try these cakes, and I have to say, the first time that I tried the Irish Bakehouse pavlova on Valentine's Day last year, I just sat there dumbfounded with I almost had tears in my eyes. The tear didn't quite go down the cheek, but it was right up there, that experience. And I really, really enjoy the Irish Bakehouse cakes. Now, speaking about the cakes, I'm really curious. So Adam, you have a baking background, you've been baking, but Alexis, you kind of came into the scene and you were looking at the recipes. You were like, all right, let's make this our own thing and let's adjust the recipes. Do you have any experience baking? What's that story? What's your background with baking?
Well, yes, that's the thing. I've been baking my entire life. As I told before, I'm an architect. I studied architecture, but I grew up in a bakery. My grandfather was a baker since he was 18 or 17. He told me that he started baking exact the same day when the Second World War started. So that's quite an interesting story that he told me. He started baking. He decides to bake. He decides to open a bakery the exact same day when the Second World War started. And I grew up in that bakery, and he taught me a lot of things and a lot of secrets. And so to survive in my life, when I was in middle school and high school, I was making a lot of pies and cakes and loaves and selling them to my teachers and my classmates, and even in college. So after my college, I started doing architecture, so I stopped the bakery thing. But then when I met Adam, he gave me his recipes, so we started baking, and we start. He made his calculations on a spreadsheet with the altitude and all the ingredients, and okay, maybe let's reduce this, let's increase this, let's fix this. And I was giving my touch, and I was okay, trying to bring all the recipes from Europe, because basically Ireland is on Belfast, where Adam is from. It's on sea level, so they have recipes already adjust. But then here in Mexico, in Queretaro, where we live, we are 1,800 kilometers above sea level, so we need to adjust a little bit the ingredients. So he did his calculation on a spreadsheet on Excel, and we adjusted all the recipes.
Wow, that got really mathematical really quickly. You guys have so many talents. So you get your baking influence from your grandfather. That's incredible. You know, same with Adam. Like you mentioned that you were baking back home, and that you kind of had this background, this experience. Do you also have, you know, an influence in your life that really got you started, or something like that, or did you just wake up one day and say, you know what, I kind of want to try this out?
No, totally. It dates back to when my family moved during the Irish Civil War in 1974, moved to Australia and then New Zealand, and then I was born in Australia. And we moved back to Ireland when I was 3 years old, and there were photographs of me with my grandmother and my semi-crazy aunt baking or making marmalade, age 3. And I think that's where it all began. I'm not a professional baker. I'm not a professional chef. I love food. I love cooking, and it's a completely like amateur background. But I think through that love of cooking is where we get really good results, really good products. And like probably thinking in that vein, probably the most important product that we have on our menu is the pavlova, because it's very representative of my personal history, because pavlova comes from New Zealand, which is where I mostly grew up between the age of 0 and 3. While I was born in Australia, we were there for 3 months, and then we went to Auckland. It also moved from New Zealand to Australia. So there's always a bit of a contest between the two countries where it came from in terms of origin. But also because there were so many Irish people who moved to Australia and New Zealand in that time of conflict, it's very famous in the UK and Ireland as a dessert. And so it's very important for me that it's on the menu, because it does represent my entire history. It's something I baked between the ages of 3 and 18 with my aunt and with my grandmother in their house in Belfast on a Friday night, because my mum was given a night off, so she could go out, let her hair down. And every time I make it, it probably reminds me of those Friday nights with my grandmother. And I think it's the same as what Alexis said. All of this baking reminds him of his own family background with his grandfather. So probably the backbone of all of the recipes, the menu, and the Irish Bakehouse in general is respect and remembrance for our grandparents.
Wow. Well, honestly, as someone that, you know, consumes your products, who's tried a lot of your cakes, like, honestly, I don't believe that you haven't had any professional training, either one of you. Like, I wouldn't believe that, because it's, for me, someone who doesn't even really like desserts, I avoid it. I eat your stuff up, and I wouldn't have believed that. So I'm super impressed. I really admire you guys for the passion that you put into your work. I see you guys baking. That's Bruni's. No, it's okay. So yeah. So like, speaking of, so Adam says, you really like your pavlova. That's of a particular significance to you. I also really like the pavlova. Everybody knows I love the pavlova. Alexis, do you have like a particular item on the menu that you quite like?
Lemon drizzle cake. It's my favorite cake. It's an amazing cake. It has the correct balance between sweet and bitter, and oh my gosh, I just love it. You need to try it.
I've had your lemon drizzle cake. It's fantastic. I do agree with that. It's right up there with the pavlova. But if I had to pick one, I'd go with the pavlova.
The lemon drizzle cake is our best-selling product, and it's almost a viral product, because what tends to happen is we take an order for one, and someone orders saying, I need this I'll pick up on Thursday, because you know what, I've got my friend's birthday is Friday, or my colleague in work. So I'm going to take this cake to the office, to this party, to my parents' house, whatever. Then I get a message the next morning, the Friday morning, saying, Adam, I don't know what happened, but I ate that entire cake. Can I order another one for today? Or, you know what, better two. Another customer said, Adam, you're a disgrace. This cake should come with a health warning. And I said, but did someone choke on it? Was there a problem? I said, no, like I ate it myself. Like before I arrived at the event, it was like it's not right.
Adam, stop abusing customers. You and Alexis need to stop. I'm just kidding.
Oh, having another story. I think I went for ingredients, or I don't remember what. But Adam stayed at home baking, and then I arrived, and then there was half of a lemon drizzle cake in the kitchen, and we're like, who else was here? We're like, no one. And we're like, what do you mean no one? Like, there is a lemon drizzle cake in half in the kitchen. Like, you must invite someone in here. So who else was here? Like, no, I'm pretty sure no one came. Like, why there's half lemon drizzle cake in the kitchen? Like, because I ate the other half.
You know what? I have a similar story. The first time that Andres and I ordered a cake from you guys, it was very sweet. You guys delivered it to our place, and then I wasn't in the mood to have cake at that moment. But Andres has a sweet tooth. And I was like, all right, well, I have some in the morning for breakfast with a nice cup of coffee with a tea or something, and I went to bed. Goodness gracious, I got up in the morning and more than half of that cake was gone. And I just remember looking at the box like, really? You just really eat more than half? It was like, it really, I wish I'd taken a picture of it because it was such a comical moment. Yeah, so let's talk about the obvious here. You guys aren't bakers full time. You both have day jobs. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you juggle your day job with your passion project?
Well, yeah, day to day I work in finance. I work in financial analysis and planning and strategy for an aviation company, and that is my focus. The bakehouse began as a passion project and has now become a very successful side business. It works well for me because I'm able to operate it while still working, because I no longer need to do any of the baking. I can run things like social media, learn lots of things from that. I try to stay in touch with the customers as much as possible because the customers get a lot of value out of dealing with the Irish guy behind the bakery. It's not always possible because I'm busy with other things, but it's very appreciated when I can get involved.
Well, this is the third time I say it. I'm an architect. I've been like traveling around the country with some with a couple of projects. I was in León working in the construction of Michelin company, and then I went to Playa del Carmen, and then the pandemic hits in this country, so I was like kind of doing a side projects, not longer working for that company, but most of it as how do you say it? I forgot. I forgot the word. Like working for free for different companies.
Volunteer work?
No. The
Freelance?
Yes, freelance. I can cut that part. So I was working as a freelance doing some projects during pandemic, and then I moved to Irapuato, and with that company I went to Toluca, and then they asked me to come to Queretaro to deliver some paperwork for them, because the other company was working here, or that they have the base in here in Queretaro. So I came here to deliver those documents, and then I stayed here for a couple of nights, and then I met Adam, and then I went back to Toluca to finish that project, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna resign. I think I I don't like the vibe of this company, so I'm gonna stay in Querétaro. And then I found another job here in Querétaro, and then I just discovered that it was better to stay or to focus on the bakery, to keep this business growing. And then I found another project last year. So I was working for 6 months building a small building in the color company. And then I was like, okay, no, I think this is just absorbing a lot of time. I need to focus on this business. And I came back this year.
We missed you very, very much while you were gone. Okay, so don't worry about the whole freelance thing, because actually that goes really well into my next question. The whole concept of the fact that we're all living in Querétaro, we are in Mexico, and Alexis, you are Mexican, not from Querétaro, from Torreón, right? And Adam, you've been like everywhere else in the world, and you're proudly Irish. And I'm curious, how does running a business, what started out as a passion project, became a successful side business, and you guys still have your day jobs, and you do the baking and all this, that, and the other, and then the language aspect and the culture aspect. Is there anything that you've learned, something that you've observed, something that you appreciate, or something related to the fact that this is an Irish bakehouse in Mexico? What do you think?
Well, that's the fascinating thing. Honestly, that's why I like dealing with the customers directly as much as possible, and also writing all of the copy for the social media content, because I found it very beneficial for my Spanish, because it came at the same time as I finally caved in and decided to take Spanish lessons. Because I remember I came here for 6 months. I never intended to stay, or never thought I would stay. So at the beginning I didn't put any effort into learning Spanish, for shame. But actually, looking back, I wouldn't change how I did it, because I gained so much from the casual absorption of Spanish, from the discussions in the office, from the discussions with new friends, learning the bad language, learning the slang, learning all of the bad practices, and then eventually caving in, deciding, yes, I will take Spanish classes, formal ones, which, what I always say is, plastered over the cracks. So it fixed all of my lack of living in all of the various tenses. It gave me new tenses to obsess about, fuese, as an example. But that sent me on a different direction, into a very educated literary version of Spanish, which has led me down the pathway of reading some Spanish literature, like Octavio Paz, for example, which has helped me both increase my level of Spanish, but also increase my level of Spanish plus Mexican historic culture and the reasons why we are the way we are in this country. And at the same time, then opening up a communication channel direct with Spanish speaking customers, and I was on the front line of like dealing with the questions, understanding their questions, trying to respond as best as I can in correct Spanish, because I need to maintain a level of professionalism. That helped me learn a lot. And also the repetition, because generally it's the same question, it's the same response. Getting that right in terms of spelling, punctuation, getting your accents in the correct place, really helped me advance my Spanish on an accelerated basis.
Wait a minute. I didn't even consider that, because like I've seen you like write out your posts and things like that, but I actually didn't consider the fact that you've gone from, casual talk to your friends Spanish to business Spanish. And of course, business Spanish can also be on WhatsApp, and you're responding to questions, and then the accents and the punctuation and all of that. I really didn't stop and think about that. That's incredible. What has helped you sort of hone that in? Like, do you study every evening, or do you just sort of kind of, have a teacher, or do you read books? Like, how do you deal with all that? How do you learn? How do you stay tip top?
It's constant practice. I studied and learned French for 7 years, and I did it completely in the reverse, because for those years it was 1 to 2 hours per week in school, not with a native French speaker. It was with a local teacher who'd learned French, and occasional practice with a native speaker. Then 7 years into my studies of French, I found myself in France for 2 years. Then I learned more than I did in the previous years, because I was surrounded by it, exposed to it. I had colleagues speaking the language, I had friends speaking the language. You couldn't get away from it, so you absorbed so much more. You were part of it. And I would say that I didn't intentionally do that here in terms of learning from that experience and doing the opposite, but it's what naturally happened. And as a result, I've learned almost fluency in Spanish much faster. And I continue learning. But it was that level of just exposing myself to it at the beginning, sitting in meetings in 2016 in 100% Spanish, and getting about 70% of it because of other experience with Latin or with German or with Swedish or with French. Because side note is, I'd always specifically avoided Spanish for some reason. I don't know why. I still can't, I always ask myself, why did I avoid Spanish? Whether it was not available to me or I just didn't go on holiday in that location. It's always an open question for me. But now I find myself in Latin America and I'm very happy here. But it's that level of just practicing now, but now more consciously, because I now understand a bit more of the actual proper structure.
Now you're in Latin America and kind of happy here. You're very humble. I think you're killing it. I think you, for me as your friend, you are one of the picture of learning the culture, learning the language, sharing what you have, what you love with other people, and I find that really inspiring. So. And I'll move on to Alexis, because on the flip side, on the one hand, we have Adam, who, had to learn Spanish and had the background in French, and then, listened in on meetings and things like that. But Alexis, you are from here, and we're conducting this whole interview, this whole conversation in English. I'm really curious as how you got your English to this level, and how Adam speaking Spanish versus you speaking English. How does that all work out in the Irish Bakehouse in your day-to-day life?
Well, first of all, answering your second question, we normally talk in this house in English. I don't know why. I think it's just when you start a relation with someone. It doesn't matter if it's a lover relationship or just a friendship. When you know or meet someone in a language, you just base your language, your conversation in that language. But answering your first question, I started learning English since I was in elementary school. It was just the basics, but then when the line is quite smooth between when I couldn't communicate properly myself, and when I start having really long and good conversation with someone. But I do remember which year it was. I think it was 2017 when I was in college, and then I met someone from United States, and he asked me to go for a couple of beers and to have a couple of nights around my city, so I can show him the city. And I wasn't sure about if I was capable to have a conversation with that person. But then we start drinking a couple of beers, and then but my mind and my mouth was quite fluent, and I was quite surprised of myself that I had this skill to develop this conversation that I had. As you notice, my accent is not as good, but I was surprised at that time that I could have a conversation with someone fully in English. But I think the secret is the alcohol.
I completely agree with that. I'm pretty much fluent in French after 3 glasses of wine, so I completely agree with you.
So yes, so after that friend, I start like having a couple more friends, like going out with friends and start like speaking in English. And yeah, I think at the beginning my secret was like, okay, let's have a couple of beers, and then let's my tongue and my mind talk for themselves. I think that the alcohol was very helpful. So a friend of mine asked me if I can start teaching Spanish to a couple of his friends from United States. So I was like, okay, I've never teach Spanish or any other stuff to someone, so I start working on that, and then I start telling to my students, okay, maybe if you have a glass of wine before the class, you could be more relaxed and less nervous, and then so you can start being more comfortable with yourself and develop yourself and release your tongue. So I think I wouldn't recommend for elementary schools but if you are over 18 and you want to learn a language, a glass of wine will help.
I agree with that. Drink responsibly and with a purpose. 100%.
I said a glass of wine, no a couple of bottles.
Okay. That's incredible. That's incredible to me. So on this whole topic of language, I only have one last question. Since we are part of the expat community here in Querétaro, and I know that there's a lot of people who are trying to learn Spanish, and it can be very daunting to look at all the grammar and, you know, come to Mexico for the first time and just, you know, when you come to a new country, sometimes you're just kind of like a little bit lost and you don't know where to begin. Do you guys have any advice for these people?
Yes, the answer is imitation game. Don't worry about the grammar. Don't worry about mistakes. Don't worry about if you said okay or not. Just listen how the people talk, and when they know you're not a native speaker, they will talk slower. They will be more respectful about you, and they will try to speak slower and clear. So take advantage of that and just listen carefully by what they say and how they say, and just try to imitate them. Don't worry about the grammar. And then when you already have a base build on that, you can start like filling all your gaps and start learning about grammar, and then you will be better. But first of all, listen and copy. That's it.
So you're placing more focus on observation and imitation than going into the books and going into the grammar. That's an excellent point. Adam, as someone who came to this country and had to learn it and study it, do you have any particular advice for people trying to pick up Spanish and improve their Spanish?
I totally agree with that, because I'm a case study for that approach. I've done the language learning in French the opposite way around, in terms of trying the books to understand, and then at a later stage actually practice day to day. But the truth is, I gained so much more from just talking, just listening, just engaging. Yes, it wasn't perfect, but the beautiful thing about Mexico compared to a lot of other countries I've been in, the Mexicans are so incredibly patient and accepting of like just us attempting. You know, I'm quite obviously not a local, but I get accepted as one when I say buenos dias in the park, when I walk Bruno in the morning, when I'm in the market, especially when they're calling me güero. And it is daunting at the beginning because nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to make mistakes. But at the same time, whether you're baking a cake or speaking a language, you need to make the mistakes to learn the lessons so that you advance. So my advice always is just do it. Just speak it. Just listen to it. Absorb what you can. And that at a certain point when you're ready, it took me 4 years to be ready, but at that point when you're ready, study the grammar. Fix the flaws. And then you'll be fluent.
There's a saying in French that is probably one of my favorite sayings in French. I'm not going to say it in French, but it translates to... Say it. I can't remember it. But there's a saying in French where which encapsulates exactly what you have just explained, which is you really can't get a certain result without making some mistakes first. And that saying is you cannot make an omelet without breaking some eggs. So I really think that is quite true. And I think you're correct in saying that there's some countries that are more accepting of mistakes than others. Mexico is definitely up there with one of the countries that will celebrate you for saying, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? And if you make a mistake, I've noticed that locals will smile, look at you, and really focus on what you're saying and try to really glean like the meaning of what you're saying. They will not interrupt, and then there's much more focus on communication rather than perfection. So I guess that's why we're friends. I completely agree with your approach. So we are coming to the end of our episode. If you've made it thus far, thank you so much for listening to the Irish Bakehouse, to Adam Alexis, and certainly to this episode. I would like to say that I'm really proud of my friends. I think what they do is amazing. I'm very lucky to witness the hard work and the dedication to creating amazing quality sweets. And just as a friend, I'm coming in and out of the house all the time, and I'm just like, so what's going on? There's always something going on, and it's just so admirable. I just wanted to be able to share that with the public somehow. Now, Adam and Alexis, as the Irish Bakehouse, they organize a lot of different events. So since we just got off the topic of languages, I'm going to let Adam talk about the events coming up in both Spanish and English, and Alexis, you as well. So...
Pues sí, porque vamos empezando con los eventos de marzo. Marzo, mes de cultura irlandesa. Porque vamos a celebrar este día de San Patricio, el 17 de marzo. Y por eso vamos a tener unos eventos extra. Entonces, lo normal es, pues, tendremos estos eventos como las noches de whisky, donde tendremos cata de whisky irlandés. Varias variedades, por ejemplo, Jameson y Bushmills, mi favorito, pero con maridaje de nuestros panes, nuestros panques, y igual nuestro gelato de nuestros amigos de Monte Gelato. Otro evento es la noche de Baileys, que es tipo curso de Baileys, y cada persona lleva a su casa una botella de nuestro Baileys casero. Pero igual en este mes de marzo vamos a agregar unos eventos solo para San Patricio. Entonces vamos a hacer pop-up durante todo el mes en el lugar de nuestros amigos de Gelato, Monte Gelato, en el centro histórico de Queretaro. Vamos a tener diario nuestros pasteles y sus ricos gelatos, sus ricos cafés de autor y unos cócteles especiales irlandeses. Y nuestro amigo Tony va a programar esta fiesta, bueno, más bien va a programar este festival de San Patricio en Álamos con una variedad extrema de música, baile y historia irlandesa. Y para nosotros es una sorpresa de llegar en México, pero no solamente en México, las montañas de México, en el centro del país. Y yo como irlandés, buscando como algo de comunidad europea o irlandesa. Y llegar con esta gente y estas personas que sí tocan instrumentos irlandeses o bailan en este estilo irlandés, pues es una sorpresa, pero creo que igual es una de las razones por qué sigo acá. Porque me siento tan en casa acá que en Irlanda.
You turn into a different person when you speak Spanish. It's amazing, and I think my Spanish is pretty good, but it's not as professional as yours. But anyway, thank you so much for that introduction to all your events. Vamos a pasar el micrófono a Alexis para que nos platique de los eventos de Irish Bakehouse en inglés.
Well, yes. If you're listeners from Queretaro, and we are doing an honor of our name, it's the Irish Bakehouse because we bake from our house. We don't have a retail, we don't have a retail business yet, so it's only collection and delivery here in Querétaro. But you can order from Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. So follow us as Irish Bakehouse, and you can see all the products in the menu on our pages. And we have an event every month which is called Global Food Garden. So keep in touch with that. Like just look for Global Food Garden, because in our house every month we have this event with some other friends with from different countries and cultures, bringing us their food, their culture, their drinks, their flavors. It's just an amazing, and it's quite like the Festival de las Culturas Internacionales, the International Festival Culture, but in a small scale. It's normally 5, 6, or 7 countries visiting us in our house, in our front yard. So just look for us as Irish Bakehouse or Global Food Garden. And we have some other events to show you or introduce you, present you about the Irish culture in Mexico with this whiskey nights, Bailey's nights, Guinness nights, where we can teach you about these drinks, and bringing you food made with these drinks, because you know drinks are not only to drink, it's to bake. We bake with whiskey and Guinness. Sometimes we put them in the food, but we drink them most of the time. And yeah, that's another thing that I wanted to say. I think that why the Irish people and the Mexican people are so friendly, and they have a really big community, because we are so similar, there are a lot of things in common between the Irish and the Mexican culture. For example, Irish are so Catholics, and yes, Mexico, they have their own Catholic culture in their own way. The Irish people drinks a lot, same as the Mexican people, and the Irish are so proud about their spirits drinks, aka whiskey, same as Mexico with tequila, which is kind of the same process. And we are so funny. We love to dance, we love to drink, we love to party. So we are so similar. So, oh yes, there is a really fun story. If you don't know about this story, Batallón de San Patricio, if you are listeners from Canada or United States or UK or from some other country that is not related to Ireland or Mexico, there was a story between the Civil War in United States and Mexico, and then United States hired this battalion from Ireland to battle with them, and then in the battle they just realize, are we the bad guys? Why we are the bad guys? So they started meeting with this Mexican soldiers and drinking and having fun and singing, and they just realized that they should battle for the opposite. So, but this Batallón de San Patricio, the St. Patrick's Battalion, they just were converted to the Mexican side. So they started fighting with them against the United States. And we really appreciate that. So in Mexico, still right now at this year, the St. Patrick's Battalion, Batallón de San Patricio, as an honor of those people who fight with us against the United States Army. And right now it's a pipe, how do you call it?
Pipe band.
Yes, the pipe band in Mexico City, which is it came from this battalion, still and right now on our days. And we really appreciate the Irish culture, and we are quite similar. So yes, we really love the Irish culture, and I think the Irish people here in Mexico, they really love our culture.
I agree with everything you said. I think that once we get past the difference of language and we get past the difference of, cultural customs and the way that we look, in the end, we do all kind of enjoy good food, good drink, and good conversation, which is exactly what we're doing now. And on that last point by Alexis, do you agree that Irish people really enjoy Mexican culture, Mexican way of life, and speaking Spanish and all of that?
Absolutely. There are so many examples in the Irish community that at least I know of, both in this city and in Mexico in general, where so many of us came with the intention of staying for a short or even medium period of time, but we've stayed here for a long period of time or for a lifetime. For example, my very close friend Tony came in 1986 just to watch the World Cup, and he stayed because he met his future wife, and this became his home, and it is his home. He's still proudly Irish, just like I am, but we live in Mexico, and it's a perfect place for us because we're so accepted here, we're so celebrated here, we feel very close to the culture here, and it's thanks to someone like Tony where I feel so engaged with Ireland and Mexico, because I'm very close to the Irish embassy in Mexico City. Thanks to introductions from Tony, we've been invited with our own brand, Irish Bakehouse, and our friend's brand, Montegelato, to actually cater a dinner in the Irish embassy for visiting dignitaries from Ireland and USA, for a very special dinner. And it was a great event. We learned so much. Like the feedback for the product was so good. They were here on a trade mission specifically for meat products, but they've gone back to their locations in Boston and in Dublin with great feedback about what the Irish community is doing in Mexico. And part of that is the Foreign Communities Festival, the Festival de Culturas Extranjeras, which happens here every year in Queretaro. Because Queretaro is a city like historically was probably a small city. It's Querétaro is important historically within Mexico because it was a passing point for the March of Independence, let's say, from Dolores Hidalgo. But really in the last 20 years it's become a heavy area of investment, which is the reason I'm here, because it became an important area for food, for automobile, and for aviation. And the last one is why I ended up here. But it's also become, as a result, a very international city, and that's why they host this event every year in terms of welcoming, celebrating, demonstrating all of the cultures that are here in this city. So we have an event like it's like an expo of artisan craft and food and drink from the different countries. And in the past there's been up to 75, 80 countries involved. And I remember very well because when I arrived here back in 2016, I remember arriving on the Tuesday. And through a local contact in Ireland, I met up with Tony on the Saturday, and we had far too many beers, which ended in his question at the end saying, "Adam, what are you doing tomorrow, Sunday?" I said, "Well, I don't have any plans. I'm just recently arrived in the country." And he said to me, "Well, do you want to dress up as a leprechaun and march through the city centre and give out like chocolate coins to families and children?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any plans." And also my attitude back then was say yes to everything because I'm new in the country. I need to meet people, I need to do things. And it was amazing. So 6 days, less than a week into being in Mexico, I was dressed up as in this ridiculous leprechaun outfit and walking through Centro Histórico of this beautiful city, entertaining the people, dancing, singing, handing out cauldrons of chocolate, gold chocolate coins. And every year that this event has happened, and then now we go full circle because from me being an innocent and eager participant back in 2016, being very, very, very appreciative of the people who welcomed me. And in fact, I remember one of the Irish girls telling me, "Now, Adam, this is your first weekend here. Like, it's not always going to be like this. It won't be party central." And for basically 7 years it has been. Now this year I've been given the great opportunity and the great honor of representing Ireland for gastronomia, so food and wine. So we will be collectively running the Irish food and wine stand at the festival. So we'll be offering Guinness, we'll be offering Jameson whiskey, Bushmills whiskey, one of the best whiskies in the world, actually the first and oldest whiskey in the world since 1608. We'll also be offering a selection of our Irish Bakehouse products, also a selection of Irish flavours from Monte Gelato, and some other surprises, as well as dance, music and stories from Ireland. And it's going to be a great event, and it's beautiful for me this year because from being a participant, now I'm becoming centrally part of it and dealing with the local council and all of that, always learning, always advancing, but always selling brand Ireland. And that's one of the things that I've really grown fond of in terms of with my connections with the Irish Embassy in Mexico, and also what we want to do here in terms of like we're selling Ireland as a gastronomic destination. It's not known as that. It's the same thing as what we're doing with Irish Bakehouse. We're flipping it on its head because normally you go to a country and you arrive there and there's a Mexican restaurant, a French bakery and an Irish bar. So why not mix it up and have an Irish bakery? And I really like this concept of messing with things but also internationally selling brand Ireland, because we are a small country but we're a loud country and we have a global impact.
I love that, because as a Mexican I can say we're kind of loud too, and we love it. We can get along with that. So if we flip everything on its head and we get an Irish bakehouse, a Mexican bar, and what did you say? A French
restaurant.
A French restaurant. we could just make all sorts of things with that. But I like that. That's. I didn't know that was what drove you, but I like it. All right, so
We can definitely do a Mexican cantina. It's very common in Mexico, so I think it could work like worldwide, Mexican cantina.
make a Mexican cantina in Dublin.
Definitely. Yes, I would love that. I think it really works.
All right, so on that lovely note, that concludes our episode today. I want to say thank you to all the listeners for being here with us today, and I want to say thank you to my friends Adam and Alexis and the Irish Bakehouse, and I think I speak for everyone when I say that. Thank you for the good cake. It's really, really good. Anything you guys want to say?
Well, thank you for inviting us. We really appreciate it, and we love delivering high quality cakes to whoever needs them.
Oh, Michelle, thank you so much for having us in your podcast. We really appreciate you.
Over and out.